All right, we are back for another chapter of the Ann-Margret biography. Now, we just read chapter 7. Now, this is my story. Ann-Margret wrote this with Todd Gold. Okay, this was. Let me read a few things here. You have to excuse me here. Ann-Margret, My Story by Ann-Margret with Todd Gold. Not a year has gone by when I wasn't asked by a publisher to write my autobiography. I always said no. Yet I've come to a point in my life where I finally have the confidence to tell my story that so many have sought. Why? Well, the answer is simple. It's just time. Ann-Margret has dazzled screen and stage audiences as few entertainers have done in our time. Her appearance in movies such as Bye Bye Birdie, Carnal Knowledge, and Tommy, and in the acclaimed television miniseries The Two Mrs. Greenfields and Queen, and her recent record-breaking shows at Radio Music City Hall, have made her a woman loved and admired, not just for her beauty and her legend, but for herself. Yet, until now, the public has known only Ann-Margret the star. Finally, we hear from Ann-Margret the woman. It goes on to say, for years, the Hollywood gossip mills portrayed her as a self-destructive actress of bristling nerves, a wife controlled by a Singali husband, and finally, a tragic heroine. For the first time, Ann-Margret opens the door to a private world in a memoir that tells her life as it really was. Relentlessly honest, these pages are filled with warmth, wit, poignancy, and truth. Readers will learn of her moving long-time relationship with Elvis Presley, her battle with and inspiring recovery from alcohol abuse, her loss and reclamation of her self-esteem, and her harrowing 20-foot fall on stage, after which the doctors feared that she would never be able to dance again. Readers will also learn the story behind her 29-year-old love affair with Roger Smith and of his battle with myasthenia gravis, a disease that forced Ann-Margret, who had always been protected by her husband and family, to take control of not only her life, but her husband's as well. Here, too, are wonderful behind-the-scenes tales about co-stars Bette Davis, George Burns, John Wayne. Hey, we got an association with John Wayne here. Jack Nicholson and Steve McQueen, to name a few. But Ann-Margret, My Story, is ultimately this remarkable, candid woman herself, finding her own way, seeking independence, becoming an accomplished actress, and more important, a woman of guts, humor, and energy, and inspiration. All right, so this was written in 1994. Chapter 8 is where we're going to. Now, these chapters are not super long, by the way, okay? But they all have a kind of a certain uniqueness to them, and that's what I'm enjoying here. I'd never been a conscious manipulator of my parents, but subconsciously, I knew how to win their approval. They doted on Ann-Margret the performer, and anything that would enhance my career was sure to win their approval. Hence, I decided that my parents should see us on stage before I asked them about Las Vegas. Now, Scott thought that I was making a mistake because the Mist, the nightclub we were playing outside Chicago, it was not exactly a wholesome atmosphere. Opening around midnight, the Mist didn't close until after sunrise. Wow, that's interesting. Midnight to dawn. That sounds like a seedy place to me. We only worked weekends, but we worked both of its rooms, the bar in front and the rear showroom, until 4 or 5 a.m., sometimes even 8 a.m. Good Lord. 8 hours of performing? In the showroom, we opened for Belle Barth, a comedian and singer famous for her risque jokes, and one of the objects of Scott's concern. I must say Belle was very sweet to all of us, though. My parents were older than old-fashioned and simply didn't use the sort of language that made up most of Belle's act. In fact, I could still hear myself as a little girl in Valjean mimicking Mother as I told the soldiers in the bakery not to swear. Fula ord, fula ord. But I had faith. During our set, I watched the table where my parents sat with my aunts and uncles. They looked as proud as royalty. Now, afterwards, I told Scott not to worry because if the subtle tones were a hit with my relatives, Belle was an even bigger one. Perhaps until that moment, I had misinterpreted propriety for prudishness. Not only did Daddy and my Uncle Charlie and Roy laugh, my uncles repeated some of the jokes they heard that night for the rest of their lives. One of my very favorite things that my Uncle Charlie said when he thought something was funny, he'd say with a big smile on his face and always with a hand slapping his knee, "Val dat was a corker." I don't know what that is. Val dat was a corker. We had the big discussion about Las Vegas the next night over dinner. I asked Scott to come for support, and he wound up explaining the agent's offer and doing more of the talking. Now, when it came to business, I felt tongue-tied and preferred to let someone else explain things, which was a harbinger of my attitude towards Roger in the later years. So, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that right here. Let's talk about the concept that a woman or a man has to do everything. There's a lot of energy that goes into being a performer. Now, as a singer, I know this. And I know that when we promoted our music singles in 2013, 2014, it was pretty much me doing it all. Well, my wife and I performed together, but calling stations, talking to radio programmers prior, setting up the tours. Not that my wife couldn't do it, but she preferred not to. She had, like Ann-Margret, kind of tongue-tied about business. It just wasn't something that she was raised to do, I guess. Negotiations. And so I don't think it's a negative here on Ann-Margret's part that Scott's talking about the agent's offer and that she felt tongue-tied and preferred to let someone else explain things, which is a harbinger of her attitude towards Roger in the later years. It's okay to work as a team. It's okay. Now, you don't want to give your full control up and your voice to somebody else completely, but, I can't imagine Elvis doing all the business dealings that the Colonel Parker did. You wouldn't have the energy or the time to do the music. So there's a teamwork. And once again, I'm not talking positively about Colonel. I'm just saying that she probably did a lot of stuff in her career because she did allow Roger to do some of the stuff, the stuff that was the business stuff. My parents were impressed by what the Settletones had achieved in such a short time. They were also impressed by Scott. Moreover, they believed in me. When it came to helping me do my best, they felt the same as they had when I was 7 and Mother stitched thousands of little beads and sequins on the costumes I wore to recitals. They wanted me to have every chance in the world to succeed in whatever I wanted to do in life. "Well, I'm glad all of you will be working together," Mother said. I sprang out of my chair and hugged Mother. They'd said yes. The night before we left, which was the day after school finished, Daddy came into my bedroom wanting to talk. Almost always, Daddy was a man of few words, quiet and introspective. But the eve of my departure for this summer was an emotional occasion. I stopped packing, which consisted mainly of throwing a bunch of sweaters and stretch pants in the suitcase. Daddy and I sat on the bed, and he apologized for not having a lot of advice to give me about the show business. But maybe, he said, I've learned a few things that I can tell you about. Looking into my eyes, he patted my knee and smiled. I fought back tears. Though Daddy rarely said anything about his past, he recounted some of the travels he'd made as a younger man and warned me to be on the lookout for characters who might try to take advantage of my inexperience in handling business matters. It had happened to him, he said. Then Daddy asked me a favor. Of course, I said. Ann-Margret, I want you to promise me you'll never take a drink of alcohol. You know I don't drink, Daddy. I had never had a drink, nor had I puffed a cigarette. I promise, I said. Now I know that Daddy struggled with alcoholism as a young man, and that he feared that it was in my genes, or in the genes. As it turned out, he was right. But at the time I was puzzled. I felt it wasn't my place to ask additional questions, so I nodded and quickly shifted my thoughts to the trip ahead. Before we left, I made my decision to drop my last name and simply go by Ann-Margret. It wasn't an affection, nor was it an attempt to be different. I didn't know of any performers who went by one name. It was just my way of ensuring that my parents were not hurt, embarrassed, or bothered by anything that might happen as a result of me being in the show business. And so it was. Not Ann, not Miss Margaret, but Ann-Margret. The four of us filled Ring Warner's station wagon and Scott's Austin Healey, the Healey Bird, with luggage and equipment and left early in the morning. Except for Scott's radiator blowing outside Salt Lake City, we arrived in Las Vegas without incident. Scott, who had vacationed with his family in Vegas, had briefed us on what to expect. A main street lit by neon signs, hotels rising up from the desert sand like concrete cacti, and packed casinos. But we did an emotional turnaround when we got into town. We got lost and couldn't find the Nevada Club where we were booked. We then had to ask for directions, and then finally we pulled up in front of the club. Scott located the club's entertainment director, who seemed confused and apologetic. The club, he explained, had extended the previous act, meaning we had no job. Scott got on the phone with the agent in LA who'd booked us into the Nevada Club. He said that he was very sorry, but as long as we've come this far, we should continue on to LA and see what happens there. Well, we issued a collective shrug. At 19 years old, you take such matters in stride. We'd driven to Las Vegas from Chicago. Well, how much further was LA? I know how much far it is. It's about 3 hours. 3.5 hours. Oh, that's less than a half day's drive, said Dave Zering, only 300 miles. We needed no convincing, and so we climbed back in our cars. None of us had ever been to the West Coast or west of Colorado before, so we regarded this as a minor setback in our grand game plan, and also an exciting adventure. Things that we are learning about Ann-Margret, that's pretty dang cool. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of me, in a sense, you know, the excitement. Okay, so what? You ain't got a gig. You can get a gig. You just go audition somewhere. And they had an agent. So I'm wondering how it's gonna go. Obviously, I don't know whether it's gonna be successful or not. We know Ann was successful. And please excuse me. I'm just a one-take guy. I don't worry about cutting stuff out, editing stuff. We know Ann was successful, but the band wasn't, right? I mean, ultimately, maybe they were successful for a little while. We'll find that out. This also might be a place, a little set. See, I've been building some stuff around my place here. Might be a little set where I do some music. You know. Something. That'd be a good place to sing downstairs here. I do have a setup to the left that's got the little drum set I play on and PA system. And my wife and I were singing that here the other night. So I just want to give you guys a couple little different backdrops and stuff, and I will be playing some songs, you know, at some point. Not on this video, and maybe on this channel, maybe not. I don't know. But this is my old faithful guitar I've had for 20, how many years? 28 years. Broken the neck twice. You know if y'all can see that or not in the very back. Bought it in 1996, so not 28 years. Yeah, I guess 28 years, almost 29 years. And wrote all my songs, all the, you know, like Muscadine, the song my wife and I wrote, was on this guitar. Fireflies lighting up the July sky, like little bolts of lightning in the dark of night, and I feel your body closing in. I still don't have much of a voice. That's why I haven't done many videos lately. Just lost a bit of a voice, but But yeah, this is one of my first songs, or part of one. Well, hello there. Yeah, I thought you'd be surprised. I came home a little early. I've got something on my mind. Anyways, I've probably written 2,000 to 3,000 songs on this guitar. Boy, my voice is definitely not back yet. But, you know, I also like singing, you know, other stuff. See, I'm a country music singer. Y'all know that I sing Elvis songs, too. I mean, I do tribute stuff. If it wasn't for Elvis, there's no way I'd be a singer. No way I'd have learned to play guitar or piano or drums or any other, or trumpet, any of the other stuff, because he was the reason why I love music. You know, I don't do a whole lot of Elvis songs live anymore. I mean, I still do Little Sister, you know. Well, little sister, don't you? Well, little sister, don't you? You know, little sister, don't you kiss me once or twice? Tell me that it's nice and then you run. Yeah, I can't sing right now. I got no voice. But whatever. I bear my soul to you. You know, as a singer, when you're not up to spec, you know, it's tough. It's tough to put yourself out there. But whatever. You know, I enjoy it. I enjoy y'all, and I hope you're enjoying the reading of this Ann-Margret book. And I said on the chapter 7, give me suggestions. Any other artists that you want to hear about reading their books. You know, or maybe even a discussion about a certain artist or a certain thing that happened. And they can be associated with Elvis. I'd rather that they were associated with Elvis, but almost everybody has a degree of separation away from Elvis Presley. So, all right. TCB, TLC, till next time.